We good, Madam Clerk? Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for joining the Binghamton City Council business meeting, 6 p.m. Wednesday, 20 September 2023. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Rezinetti.
Present.
Councilwoman Riley.
Present.
Councilmember Friedman.
Present.
Councilman Burns is absent. Councilman Strawn.
Present.
Councilman Scanlon.
Present.
And President Scringy.
Present.
All right, that's one absent. Burns.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have a quorum present. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Rezinetti for the purposes of a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the minutes from the September 6, 2023 business meeting.
Motioned by Councilwoman Rezinetti, seconded by Councilman Strawn to accept the business meeting minutes from 6 September 2023. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Thank you very much. At this time, Chair recognizes the clerk for the purposes of setting a public hearing. Madam Clerk.
Binghamton City Council and the Mayor of the City of Binghamton will hold a public hearing regarding RL 23-196 entitled Amending the Bond Ordinance adopted November 19th, 2021, relating to construction of various improvements to Mirabito Stadium to comply with the mandates of Major League Baseball. And this will be held at the October 4th, 2023 business meeting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This time we will move toward public comment. Residents wishing to submit comments may do so electronically by emailing their comments prior to 1 p.m. on the day of the meeting to clerk@cityofbinghamton.gov or in person during the meeting. For any questions, please contact the city clerk's office at 607-772-7005. Madam Clerk, were any written or electronic forms or submissions made prior to 1 p.m. today?
No, there was not.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. For anyone speaking in person, you will have 5 minutes to speak. Please provide your name and whether you work or reside in the city of Binghamton. As there were no electronic submissions, letters, or anyone in person, Chair at this time will move on to first read legislation. We'll start with the preferred agenda. Council, is there anyone that would like to remove anything from the preferred agenda? Seeing none, we will move forward with the preferred agenda. Madam Clerk.
First is an introductory ordinance 23-122 considered in finance, an ordinance to amend the 2023 public works budget for responsibility adjustments until November 25th, 2023.
Discussion. Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Next is introductory resolution 23-73 considered in planning, a resolution declaring the intent of the city of Binghamton to act as lead agency for environmental review of the terminal pumping station located on Gates Road in Vestal, New York.
Discussion. Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Next is introductory resolution 23-74 considered in planning, a resolution authorizing the mayor to extend the contract period with the Volunteers of America until September 30th, 2023.
Discussion. Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Next is introductory resolution 23-75 considered in finance, a resolution authorizing the mayor to amend the contract with Outreach Ministries to increase the contract amount.
Discussion. Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
The last one on the preferred agenda is introductory resolution 23-76 considered in finance, a resolution authorizing the mayor to amend the contract with the YWCA to increase the contract amount.
Discussion. Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to accept the preferred agenda as submitted.
So moved. Second.
Motioned by Councilwoman Friedman, seconded by Councilwoman Riley. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Rezinetti.
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley.
Aye.
Councilmember Friedman.
Aye.
Councilman Burns. Councilman Strawn,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Scringy.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The preferred agenda for this evening's meeting passes. Let it be known, we do have full attendance and quorum. At this point, we will move on to the non-preferred agenda. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory ordinance 23-120.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introductory ordinance 23-120. An ordinance to allocate American Rescue Plan Act funds to support an affordable housing project at 187 Clinton Street with acquisition costs, pre-development activities, including environmental testing and engineering services.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilwoman Rezinetti. Council discussion. Councilwoman Friedman.
Thank you, President Scringy. I hesitate to support this legislation at this time. Reason being, we had requested some information that we have not yet received about other municipalities that have used funds in this way. This makes me a little bit nervous because yes, the number one initiative that our constituents said that they wanted the ARPA money to go to is affordable housing. However, the way that this is set up for the pre-development cost, this could be a sunk cost for us. My understanding is that the way that the affordable housing credits work, it is difficult to achieve them. So I'm worried that we're going to give $2.2 million to an out of town developer who, yes, has a connection to Binghamton, and I do appreciate that. That's not lost on me. But then what happens if the project does not go through? We have now sent millions of dollars to a for-profit company. And the reason why Councilwoman Riley asked for the information regarding how the other municipalities have done it is we want to know more about how, like, is this going to be a worthwhile investment? How does it work? Then, do we see a return on our on investment, or are these going to be rental properties that may or may not get built with, again, the extractive model of taking rent money? Who gets that rent money, right? Who profits off of that rent money? So I am hesitant to support this at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Riley.
Thank you, Council President. I did tell my co-council member to go first, but she did state many of the concerns and qualms I have. So I'm going to step away from my own, again, thoughts, but I will state the facts. Number one, I received several emails about us, again, supporting an out-of-town developer. If you guys remember the fuss and the number of emails we received with the acquisition of properties by Amicus, right? That's in the 3rd district primarily. I've been getting maps about that. And when they heard that we may be giving $2.2 million of ARPA funds, which again is only half of what was being asked for another entity that the city is part owner of, and we did receive scoffing about that amount as well. So number one, again, we are building a relationship with an out-of-town developer was one of several of the comments in the several emails I received from my constituency. And yes, we are aware there may not be a lot of upstate developers or local developers that can handle a project of this magnitude, but were they afforded the opportunity? That was their question. The second set of email requests and concerns I received was about the allocation of properties based upon the AMI. And again, with a 60-40 split or a 50, it wasn't even 50-50. I think it was 60-40 with, again, not targeting the population that was highlighted and identified in the housing survey that was done a few years back. We keep talking about the landscape and the residents and the need for housing in this area. But again, a majority of the population still would not fit the criteria that we've set as the guidance or the marker for this affordable, quote, unquote, housing. So again, because my constituents have reached out and verbally and in written form asked us to reconsider this project and seek further information, one of which I spoke with, and I'm going to mess up her name, it's not Amy, Sarah verbally, I did not follow up in writing, but I did follow up again verbally, requesting information directly from the two groups that were here that spoke to support from legislators in New York City that we can reach out to and find out how they felt about their projects and their working relationships, which again, we need data to go back to our constituents and say, hey, well, council person, this has worked with them, blah, blah, blah. It might be a good idea. So because I have yet to receive the information requested, I'm going to ask that we hold this legislation over.
Is there a second?
Second.
Introductory ordinance 23-120. Motion has been made and exercised by Councilwoman Riley to hold over, seconded by Councilwoman Friedman. Introductory ordinance 23-120 is held over. Thank you. We'll move on. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Rezinetti for the purposes of introductory ordinance 23-121. As a general reminder to the body, as well as to our residents watching this evening, any sale of property requires 6 votes in the affirmative to pass. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Rezinetti.
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance has a seeker. The following seeker motions are in reference to the legislation before us. Introductory ordinance 23-121, an ordinance authorizing the sale of 9 Slauson Avenue to Metro Group Properties, Inc. for $1. I'll make a motion to declare City Council as lead agency under seeker.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilwoman Rezinetti, seconded by Councilman Scanlon. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Councilwoman Rezinetti.
Make a motion to identify the proposed action as unlisted under seeker.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilwoman Rezinetti, seconded by Councilman Scanlon. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Councilwoman Rezinetti.
Make a motion to issue a negative declaration under seeker for the following reasons. The proposed sale will not conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations. Any future development of the site will be subject to, at a minimum, site plan review and approval and seeker reviews by the Planning Commission. The proposed sale will not impair the character or quality of the existing community. The proposed sale will not have an impact on a critical environmental area. The proposed sale will not impact traffic or infrastructure, energy use, or water and sewer infrastructure. The proposed sale will not negatively impact important historic resources. Proposed sale would not result in an adverse impact to natural resources, erosions, flooding, or human health.
Thank you, Councilwoman Rezinetti. Do I have a second? Motion by Councilwoman Rezinetti, seconded by Councilman Scanlon. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Rezinetti.
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley.
Aye.
Councilmember Friedman.
Aye.
Councilman Burns.
Aye.
Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon.
Aye.
And President Scringy.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes.
Seeker passes. Thank you for that, Councilwoman Rezinetti. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Rezinetti for the final introductory of introductory ordinance 23-121.
Thank you. I ask for unanimous consideration for introductory ordinance 23-121, an ordinance to authorize the sale of 9 Slauson Avenue to Metro Group Properties.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Rezinetti, seconded by Councilman Strawn. Discussion. Councilwoman Friedman.
Thank you, President Scringy. I do want to support this legislation. Reason being, I think that, you know, almost any affordable housing would be a benefit to the community. You all know how I feel about ARPA. I feel like we need to be extra careful about that. But as far as the actual building of the property and this sale of property, I do feel comfortable supporting this legislation. And I think that it does show that we are invested in having this project go through with appropriate funding sources, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other discussion? Seeing none, is the question called? Question's been called. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Rosanetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilmember Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Strawn,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Scringy.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory ordinance 23-121 passes. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory ordinance 23-123.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introductory ordinance 23-123. In order to amend the 2023 police budget to defund one police officer, grade 1 position, and fund one police lieutenant position until December 31st, 2023.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilwoman Rosanetti. Discussion. Seeing none, is the question called?
Call the question.
Question's been called. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Rosanetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilmember Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Strawn,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Scringy.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory ordinance 23-123 passes. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Rosanetti for the purposes of a seeker concerning introductory ordinance 23-124.
Thank you, Mr. President. The following secret motions are in reference to the legislation before us. Introductory ordinance 23-124, an ordinance authorizing the sale of 92 Park Avenue to Erica Harbor at $55,500. I'll make a motion to declare City Council as lead agency under secret.
Do I have a second? Motioned by Councilwoman Rosanetti, seconded by Councilman Strawn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Councilwoman Rosanetti.
I'll make the motion to identify the proposed actions as unlisted under secret.
Do I have a second? Motioned by Councilwoman Rosanetti, seconded by Councilman Scanlon. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Councilwoman Rosanetti.
I'll make a motion to issue a negative declaration under secret for the following reasons. The proposed action will not conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations, nor result in a change of land use. The proposed action will not impair the character or quality of the existing community. The proposed action will not have an impact on a critical environmental area. The proposed action will not impact traffic or infrastructure, energy use, or water and sewer infrastructure. The proposed action will not negatively impact important historic resources. The proposed action will not result in an adverse impact to natural resources, erosion and flooding, or human health.
Do I have a second? Motioned by Councilwoman Rosanetti, seconded by Councilman Strawn. Clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Rosanetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilmember Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Strawn,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Scringy.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Seeker passes regarding introductory ordinance 23-124. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Rosanetti for the introduction of the same motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consideration for introductory ordinance 23-124, an ordinance to authorize the sale of 92 Park Avenue to Erica Harbor.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motioned by Councilwoman Rosanetti, seconded by Councilman Scanlon. Discussion. Councilwoman Rowe.
Thank you again, Council President. So here we are. I've talked about the same, every time this is presented to us, I highlight the city's RISE grant and why we were selected. Yes, the city's RISE grant is to support the revitalization of blighted and unused, untaxed properties with prioritization on those that are unhoused or unable to afford housing. Again, our goal, as I've talked about over and over again, is to support the needs of those who are not able to achieve or obtain the loans that would be required for many of the houses once we rehabbed or refurbished them, but particularly for properties that we, the city of Binghamton, have rehabbed. We had a certain criteria within the rubric to determine who is eligible for such properties, and one of which was owning other properties in the county. Now, we did hear from Dr. Sperling that this property, because we received the property not knowing the depth of issues related to restoring it to its full capabilities, we expended more than we thought. And she said she's open to hearing other ideas. One great idea would be to take some of this ARPA money we just discussed and add it to this treasury or this line so that we can bring the building up to code and bring it up to a status where it can be used for families and the like. And then we can find someone that does not own several properties in the county, and this can be their first home. That's our goal, to increase home ownership, not increase landlords and well, not for this grant particularly. I just think, again, we need to think about what we purpose to do with the grant and what we desire to do in terms of providing opportunities for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Scaringi. So this piece of legislation, like Councilwoman Riley said, this is the second time that we're seeing it. I mean, it's a little teeny bit different. And I understand that this property was more difficult than expected to bring it up to snuff. And I appreciate that there is still work that is required on this property, and that's not attainable for everyone. But again, like Councilwoman Riley said, who is the Cities Rise grant for? Sure, one benefit that we have achieved with this property is bringing a blighted property, giving it a facelift and taking it, kind of transforming it for the benefit of the neighborhood, but also giving priority to people who are first-time home buyers. And so I also, not to repeat everything that Councilwoman Riley just said, but I do appreciate what Dr. Burling was explaining to us, that they maybe they weren't expecting what they were getting with this property. Again, I can appreciate that. A lot of the other properties that have been improved with this grant money have had buyers like no problem. This one was a little tricky, and I do appreciate that it's not lost on me. Yeah, it's just, this is pretty much the same piece of legislation that we saw before, just with a price difference of $500. I also think that there is a way that we could make this property attainable for a first-time home buyer or someone for whom property acquisition is typically out of their reach. And it's also not lost on me that, I don't want us to look at this as, this is a sunk cost. We put so much money into this property and now it's just sitting there. But I think that we're so close to making this for changing someone's life with this property, if we can just make it available to someone who typically would not be able to acquire property and might be forced to live in at a reduced rate, right? Who might be forced to live in a housing complex with $1,500 rent. So, yeah, I know this is a difficult case, and I want to thank everyone who worked on this, but I don't think this is the best use of this money. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Burns.
Yes, this is in my district, and it's been a blighted property for a very long time. We are getting the money back. We're selling it for 55,000. And we tried to sell it. We tried to get people to buy it. And the person who's buying it is probably going to have to spend more than $55,000 and more to get this building ready to go. So if we're not going to do it, and it's become too much for the program to do it, so we're now going to have to sell it, that if we delay, then this property will remain an eyesore for who knows how long. And it's finally coming to fruition. I know the neighbors all over there just want it. They don't want it to look the way it looks anymore. So I know exactly what my two fellow Democrats over there are talking about, but at the same time, I know that the neighbors over there feel that, let's get it done. And if we put another 55, it's going to be more than another 55,000. But if we put it, all that money, more money in it, we're going to sell it, then the people that are going to buy it aren't going to even fall into this category of the people that we want to be able to buy it. So, I think, it's a great idea if we turn it over to the land bank, or if we just, fixed it up, but the problem is that nothing's been happening over there. It's just been sitting there. And now we have a chance to make the neighborhood better, and it'll bring up the entire neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Rao.
Thank you again for that, Council President. And again, I thank you for the discussion we're having. As you mentioned in your closing, we have not reimagined what to do with this property based upon the conversation that even Dr. Burling initiated when she was here. You mentioned talking to the land bank. Has anyone inquired as to the next steps so that we can reap the same benefit from this property, and both entities, the strategic partnership, meets their goals and still helps address housing needs in the city? No, we haven't. But what we are going to do if we decide to move with this as it is, not only are we not adding the additional rental requirements that Dr. Burling mentioned we could add to this legislation, not only are we not investigating other methods to ensure the renovation of the property, we're also not, again, using this time to think strategically to ensure that we're doing what we committed to in the rubric for the ownership of this property. If this land, again, I'm not against landlords. Let me say that on the record before somebody misquotes something. But if she wanted this to rehab because she has the wealth or the cash resources to do so, this property has been vacant. It could have been done then. Now we have this money, again, this pot of money that came from Tish James' office to help certain subsets of the population, but we're ignoring that part. Let's be creative. Let's kill this and let's start over and investigate. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman Burns.
I agree with her 100%. Why don't we hold this over and see if we I'd like to hold it over.
Second. Right.
So, hold on. So,
I'd like to hold this over.
so just hold
So
on,
we can talk to it early.
just for some order, Okay. So thank you all for your input. I'm hearing that there, Councilman Burns, so are you exercising a motion to hold this over?
I'll take that back. Let's vote.
Okay. Is there a motion to hold this over? Councilman Strong?
I'm not motioning to hold over. I just wanted to make a,
Oh, comment. My apologies, Councilman Strong. I'm sorry.
I agree with Councilman Burns. I mean, keeping this property sitting there heading towards winter, when it's just an eyesore, and then it's foolish, actually. We have other properties we could work with in the city. They're all over the place as I've been walking around. If we want to try to reimagine something else with any kind of funds, but Dr. Burling is probably the most honest straight shooter that we have in City Hall. Well, there's a lot of them, but she's just very, nonpartisan. And, I trust her, and they've been working hard on this, and just their time is going on and on to take care of this. And I just think to not move forward with it and get this back maintained on the tax rolls and off the blighted properties is crazy. That's my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Strong. Is there any other discussion? Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Scringy. I would be, well, let me make a suggestion before saying that I would be willing, but I believe that it might be worthwhile to allocate ARPA money toward this to close the gap between it being in live-in condition and not right now. Can I take a temperature check with my colleagues to see if that would be something that would be appealing, just out of curiosity, to make this this property, to get it on the tax rolls again, to have someone living in it, all of the benefits that you all have stated and Dr. Burling has stated. But also additionally make this acquirable to a first-time homeowner. The short version is, how would you all feel, just temperature check, about allocating ARPA money to this instead of relying on someone's personal finances for this project?
Thank you, Councilwoman. So I'll go around. Councilman Scanlon.
My feeling is we should take a vote on this now, because if it fails, and it's likely it will, then they'll be forced to go back to the drawing board. So I think we're kind of beating this up a little bit. My opinion, we should take a vote, and if it fails, it fails, and then they'll be forced to go back to the drawing board. Thank you.
It's a call for question. I second the call for question.
That didn't sound like a call to question. I didn't hear those words. But thank you, Councilwoman Riley. Thank you for that. Councilwoman Resident. So let me try to add to this portion of the discussion, right? So as it relates to any request for legislation as body, we have a right to amend it and do whatever we want with it. That's our right. That's not an issue. From a logistical perspective, here are the concerns operationally that I have. Because this is a home buying initiative that is actually codified in our city charter process, I don't know to what extent a line like ARPA is usable. Off the cuff, it seems to me like it would be. That's my own personal opinion. And we can have that discussion if we want. But the question is, if we're going to amend this legislation right now, I'm operating on the assumption, and please tell me wrong, but I'm assuming all 7 of us do not have an actual budget line here to pull something from. So considering that we don't have that, at least right now, logistically, amending that in that fashion, not morally wrong, just not possible or feasible at this particular moment. So that's one thing. The second thing is because of the process that is codified in the city charter with the first time home buyer program, please be mindful that the 6 votes that is required to have this pass, because it is a sale of property, if it is not held over and it is voted on and does not pass, that doesn't put us starting at square one. That starts us all over again, including time related to fielding submissions for purchases and all of that stuff. If there are zone changes that come down the road, any potential public hearings that might be related to that. So logistically, not substantively, a vote, again, here's all the choices before us. A vote in the affirmative passes and it moves on. If it's voted and it fails, it's not starting the process over of the RL. It's starting literally the entire process of the RL, not a judgment, just an observation. Or it can be held over and there could potentially be a regroup. Just procedurally, those would be our 3 options. Councilwoman O'Reilly.
Call for question, Council President.
Question. Councilman Scanlon.
I'd like to hold this over.
I had a call for question out there.
I know I've had to call the question, and I've also had multiple members give things back even after that. So. All right. Hold on. What's the general sense of the room here? It sounds like I'm hearing the councilman that represents the district. It sounds like is in support of it. I think I'm hearing 2 against, which is fine. Absolutely. Councilman Burns.
When I came in tonight, I was in support of it, but after listening to my colleagues, I would like to change. And I was thinking, I mean, the land bank, we sat here and approved
Correct.
$3 million to go to the land bank.
All
So
right.
why doesn't the land bank? She's gonna have to spend another $60,000 to fix it up. Why don't we get $60,000 from,
All right.
to the land bank and
But
have them fix it?
councilman, as a process, okay, I'm speaking to you not on a substantive level with this being in your district. You do realize that if it is not held over that amendment process, you don't get that ability because you are logistically, you're starting over again. I saw you, Councilman Riley. I saw.
So can't, so if it is held over, we can amend it during a holdover.
Yes.
That
You
correct?
can amend it at the next meeting and work on what the substance of the potential amendment might be over the course of the next 2 weeks. Right. But to get an amendment
Why
is
can't-
not a sale, so only a simple majority is required for an amendment. Councilman Strong.
We were still talking and making comments. So if somebody just says call, but that doesn't mean that we.
Yeah, no, I know, I understand. I try to,
That happened a couple weeks ago. Somebody tried to do
I know.
that and you stopped.
it's fine. I understand we're still in discussion. Councilman Scanlon, sorry.
Again, Mr. President, with all due respect, I requested it be held over and we should decide if there's going to be a second on that or not.
Second.
Motion has been exercised to hold over introductory ordinance 23-124. It is held over. Thank you all for the discussion. I did want to come back around, Councilwoman Morale. I know you did have your hand raised. I didn't want to leave you out of that.
No, it's okay. I'm fine. Again, I did understand the call for question concern. Thank you for reiterating or asking for clarification, Councilman Strawn. We are fine. Let's proceed.
Thank you, Councilwoman Rudd. Or any other discussion? All right, so introductory ordinance 23-124 has been held over. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of a motion concerning introductory ordinance 23-125.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introductory ordinance 23-125, an ordinance to authorize the mayor to accept a grant from Broome County Government Brownfield Funds and amend the 2023 capital budget.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilwoman Rezanetti. Discussion. Seeing none, is the question called?
Call the question, Mr. President.
Question's been called. Clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Rezanetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilmember Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Strawn,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Scringy.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory ordinance 23-125 passes. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon for the purposes of a motion regarding introductory ordinance 23-126.
Thank you, Mr. President. Introductory ordinance 23-126, an ordinance to amend the 2023 police budget for the purchase of Glock 9mm handguns.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilman Scanlon, seconded by Councilwoman Rezanetti. Discussion. Councilwoman Freeman.
At the work session, oh, thank you, President Scringy,
course,
sorry.
of
At
Floor
the
is yours.
work session, Chief Zukoski said that most of the shots fired are to destroy animals. So this seems like a steep price to pay, even with the buyback, which would be, I forget exactly how much, 35,000, 55,000, I don't remember exactly, but that's still about $100,000 for guns to shoot animals. Don't love it. I understand that there are some benefits to these new guns, but it just seems like a lot of money to pay for equipment that thankfully is not used very often. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Or any other discussion? Councilman Burns. Councilman Burns? Did you have your hand up?
Yes, I
Yes,
just
sir.
would like to point out to the
Go ahead.
to the people that are watching at home that this is not an increase in the police budget. This is a transfer from one line to another. So we're not adding money to the police budget. And having had my family recently deal with the police department, I have to say that if they're carrying guns, I want them to have a gun that is what they consider the safest for them and for constituents within the city of Binghamton. And so I'm for this. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Burns. Councilman Scanlon.
Thank you, Mr. President. So obviously, you know how I feel about the Binghamton Police Department. And I think if Chief Zukoski comes down here and said that these guns are better for the police department, they're better for men and women of the Binghamton Police Department, I'm all for it, obviously. So I will be supporting this. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. Is there any other discussion? Councilwoman Rezanetti.
I just wanted to say that I agree with the comments that were just made. First of all, there is a transfer here and it's not costing additional money. Also, you know, when you hear that other law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, for example, are moving towards this, it would only make sense, I think, that we can do what we can to support our law enforcement here locally. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Rep.
Thank you, Council President. And again, thank you, colleagues, for your comments. We pretty much knew what would be said. Based upon what was shared, again, that data that was given to us as council people and many of us researchers, it was from 2014. It was mentioned that this is something that the county and other municipalities are moving to do, but we did not subsequently receive the data to support that this is the top, the latest and the greatest in terms of innovative strategies for the police department. I also asked the chief if we were to do a survey, if he'd done an anecdotal survey, would they be happy? He said he hadn't asked. They might complain about holsters. Then I asked, well, would they prioritize guns as one of the top needs in the agency? He also said he had not asked. So I don't want us to say things on the mic that people will repeat that were not necessarily what was provided. We did not have data to say that this is where police academies, police departments are going, period. That was from 2014. And when I asked, when that literature came out, did we make a motion to move in that direction? One had not. Now, that does not say that I don't support having something someone believes to be true and the best. And I also support the fact that, again, we are decreasing the revenue in one line, obviously, that we didn't need to support such. So thank you. I just wanted to make sure I clarified the statements around the room.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Is there any other discussion? I'll just add, I'll just be very honest, given my own training, I was a little surprised at this, that a 40 cal, being replaced with a 9mm, would be kind of put forward in a proactive manner. I can understand some of the the aspects of it in relation to things like recoil and things like that. That does make sense. But if that's the general direction of what the department feels that would work best for them, obviously I'll support that. But given all the good points all around that were submitted, I do appreciate those. So any other discussion? Councilman Burns.
Yes, so you're in the military. And what is your professional opinion on
For me, from my standpoint, at least as it relates to my training, I mean, don't get me wrong, like a 9mm, it's not a small slug. It's not a 40 cal, but I mean, you can do damage with a 9mm. The argument, I guess, is that from a defensive perspective, a firearm that discharges a 40 caliber because of the size and the ability and the speed of that bullet, there's a lot of recoil with a handgun in particular that discharges a bullet in the size of a 40 caliber, right? So the recoil is when you're holding the firearm and you pull the trigger and the bullet discharges, the recoil is the amount at which that firearm bounces back. That's why they call it recoil. So it coils back. A 9mm will recoil, generally speaking, less than a 40 caliber will. So I guess the argument is if there's less recoil, and that is an issue for an officer, where I could see that potentially could be, depending on the individual person, less recoil in those few seconds that an officer has to make that split decision. They can aim more appropriately, they can aim more directly, and so that fired shot would be more accurate. So I can understand that. And obviously if that's their general consensus, then I would support that. So any other
it is safer then for an officer to have?
Yeah, there are safer aspects to it. Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Any other discussion? Seeing Councilwoman Riley.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to thank you for adding that tactical information, because that benefited us. Again, there was some data in that paper, but again, comparing what we have to what is being discussed in that 2014 document was not enough for me. So thank you for that.
I can understand. I appreciate you. Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other discussion? Seeing none, is the question called? Question's been called. The clerk will call the roll. Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Resonetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
You know, I hope that was recorded. You want me to come? You don't need to do it. You don't need my vote.
All right, procedurally, we're still in it. Councilwoman Riley, it's the floor is yours.
Thank you. That's a nay.
Sorry, was that A or nay?
That is a nay.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Friedman,
Yeah, similarly to Councilwoman Riley, I'm you know, yeah, I do appreciate the additional information. I'm also going to vote nay.
Councilman Burns,
There was a break in it at my house last week, and the Binghamton police caught the guy.
Colleagues,
while he
colleagues,
was
please,
there.
please keep in mind, while I appreciate the narrative, discussion has passed and we are in the middle procedurally of a roll call.
Okay, I'm happy about
We need
that.
a vote.
What could have happened at my house when the police arrived is that one of the family members could have been home. This guy didn't have a weapon, but personally, I want the Binghamton police, if they're coming to my house or to anybody's house, to anybody's family, I want them to have the safest gun that they can possibly have.
Thank you, Councilman. We
So
do
I
need-
vote yay. Yes.
Thank you, Councilman. Madam Clerk.
Councilman Strawn,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Scringy.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, 2 nays, Riley and Friedman.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Introductory ordinance 23-126 passes. I know this was in depth and Councilman Burns, I will, for the record, I understand this hits you in a personal sense with you and your family, and I appreciate you sharing that. I know there's a lot there to that. And I thank you all for the discussion. So thank you for that, Councilman Burns. All right, that being said, we will move on to communications from council, and Chair recognizes Councilwoman Resonetti.
Thank you. I don't really have much to say, just continuously, I guess I want to repeat my gratitude to DPW and all the work that they're doing. Construction season is still going on. I also have seen the sweepers out there really at full force. And I don't know if they're out there all the time, but it just feels like they're out there a lot recently, maybe just timing. They're doing an amazing job. That's on.
So, yeah, I think
Oh.
if you can, yeah, I'm sorry, Councilwoman.
So
My
yeah, I don't know
apologies.
if they're out there. I've missed them a whole lot in the past, but it just seems like they're out there in full force, and it's so good to see. Constituents have made comments actually about that. Also, I guess I just wanted to say how fantastic it is to see rec park so full of life. It's been embraced by all the tennis players, the pickleball players. One day I'll find out what that is all about, pickleball. And it just looks great. It looks fantastic. And I guess before we meet next time, we'll be done with summer, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
enjoy the very last couple, 3 days that we have. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Riley.
Thank you again, Council President. So yes, similar to my colleague, I want to give kudos to Parks and Rec because not only do they make sure that the typical parks are beautiful, we have other parks too that don't have necessarily pools, but they are just as pretty, like Walnut Park. And they make sure that the neighbors have a park that's just as much fun within walking distance of their homes. And the thing is, they don't end in the summer. So we have a lot of fall activities. So I want to again give kudos to that entire department. I also want to wish a happy Yom Kippur to those who celebrate. We will be approaching. I know, don't look at me. I took your, I can say it too. Those that celebrate as we approach another high holiday. And then again, the Girl Scouts Women of Distinction event will be occurring next week. It is always a momentous occasion to recognize women in the community. So I just wanted to make sure we are highlighting such efforts But as my council member also recognized, we are in the Northeast, and what that means is it's getting cold. And those of you that don't know, we have a lot of unhoused residents that, again, because we are unable to find shelter, are living in tents that we supported from the Y. And it's not again, it's an option. But that means if you have coats, if you have blankets, if you have items that would be beneficial to these residents, our neighbors, please donate them. There are several donation sites. There is going to be a Buy Nothing Broom event. I know Councilwoman Friedman will talk at length about that. But again, it's time to think of those that are less fortunate. And if we have something, let's support residents who feel it's safer to stay in the tent than to move in some of the housing options we provide. And that says a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Scringy. The mayor today sent me a picture of Morgan Street. So construction has finally started on Morgan Street, which is very exciting. I hear about that street the most. That is in need of repaving. It was on the list in the CDBG fiscal year action plan for last year. Then it got taken off because there were issues. And so finally, we're going to do it right. We're going to repave it hopefully next year. But I'm so excited that construction has finally started on that. So that is very exciting. Tomorrow, the Citizen Actions Phoenix Awards will be taking place. They are a nonprofit in my district, and they do amazing work, a lot of direct service stuff. They help a lot of unhoused people in the area, and the Phoenix Awards are an annual award ceremony to honor unsung heroes doing excellent work in our communities. That's going to be at a Trio banquet hall, which I recently learned is pronounced a trio and not a trio. So I've been pronouncing it wrong for years. So anyway, that's tomorrow. Also, on Monday is Yom Kippur. That is the most important Jewish holiday. Believe it or not, it is not Hanukkah, even though that's the one that most people know. So Yom Kippur is a very, very holy day. If you Jewish people in your life, it's not customary to wish people a happy Yom Kippur, but you can wish them an easy fast. Many people will choose to fast on that day, and you can wish them a meaningful Yom Kippur and an easy fast is the appropriate thing to say. And the Buy Nothing Market is also on Sunday, and that's at the church on Shenango Street. Is that right? 549 Shenango Street. Councilwoman Riley's verifying for me. But that's a great opportunity to, first of all, clean out your closet, and secondly, get a bunch of good stuff secondhand for free. It's literally the Buy Nothing Market. I've gotten a pair of pants there before, and I was able to get rid of a bunch of stuff that I no longer wore. Drum roll. Okay, it's going to be from 11 to 2 on Sunday, and it is at 549 Shenango Street, also in the 4th District. And this month's Buy Nothing Market is there's a special focus on collecting Halloween costumes. So if your children have outgrown some Halloween costumes, make sure to bring those there. Thank you. Or you can pick them up there. Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Councilwoman.
that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Burns.
Thank you, Mr. President. Guess I'll jump on the Parks Department bandwagon. The tennis courts at MacArthur, they relined them. They repaved it and they relined them and put the pickleball lines in there. And I went by today and yesterday, and everybody's playing pickleball. And the hardcore tennis players don't like the pickleball lines. I've listened to that too. So, but I'm happy to see the courts in action. I mean, they were all full. So, and then down at the west end of Vestal Avenue, where 434 meets, I was with the mayor a few weeks ago, and we were talking about the color of sidewalks, that I don't like the bright white sidewalks. I like them, have them a little duller. And I mentioned to him that at the beginning of this year, they put in sidewalks at that west end. And what they did was they put in a new sidewalk, and then they figured that this part of the sidewalk, this one square, was good cement, so they won't replace that. And then they replaced a couple more, and then they didn't replace. So it was a complete mismatch in front of these poor people's houses. And I mentioned it to him, and this week they're adding more sidewalk to Vestal Avenue, but they're going back. They're matching the cement. So I just want to thank the mayor. It's nice to be heard. And that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Burns. Chair recognizes Councilman Strong.
Yes, I actually got stopped at that detour where they're putting those sidewalks in on Vestal Ave. Not to just relay the same thing, but I legitimately have heard several people last night from my side of town commenting on Rec Park as well. It looks great. Pickleball as well, all over the place. Even though it was an original state project, I think the city will have some maintenance responsibility, but the new walkway on the south side is being used a lot, and it looks nice, looks great, all lit up at night. So, and actually one of the people that talked to yesterday was Councilman Burns' son-in-law. First time up in several years at Ely Park, and absolutely loved it. He's a golfer, but just hasn't been up there till I think just this week, and said he couldn't believe how good it looks. So rec opportunities this fall abound in the city of Binghamton. So just pile on that subject, since it's a good one and a positive one. And thank you everyone involved in that.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon.
Thank you, Mr. President. So to reiterate what all my colleagues have been saying, that parks have never looked better in the city of Binghamton. We're fortunate we have Rec Park in the middle of the city. There's not too many cities that have a park the size of Rec Park, in their area. So it's really nice to see, and all the activity at Rec Park. So just to jump on what Councilman Strong just said, Ely Park, I golf in the league up there, has never looked better. I don't remember looking this well in 30 years, and they actually got a bid to put a deck up there. The guy running the place, Brad, wants to put a deck up there, and he got a bid, and I'm not sure when it can start. Most likely spring. We're getting late in the year here, but it'd be a great addition up there. It'd be really nice where he wants to have bands up there on a Friday, Saturday night. I think it's a great idea. Just to make it more of a destination for the non-golfers too, to go up there and grab something to eat, sit on the deck, and maybe listen to music. So it's all positive stuff. One more thing, in my district, there's a gentleman who was, I think they Narcaned him 6 times in the past 3 weeks. And a neighbor called me and said, should they limit the amount how many times they can Narcan somebody? I said, well, these first responders don't think like that. They want to get there. They want to save them. They're not going to hesitate because they've been there 5 times before. They're not going to take their time. They're going to try to save who's ever involved there. And I hope the gentleman gets help someday. But, and it's not my district, it's all over the city, the Narcan. And I don't even want to know how many times people are Narcaned in a week in the city of Binghamton. I mean, it's more than I would want to know, but at the same time, I'm glad they're saving these people, and hopefully they can get help. And thank you, Mr. President. I'm done. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Scanlon. Myself with just a few things, kind of a little scattered around between whether it's the first district or the city of Binghamton. So first, I want to thank the BPD. I actually heard an amazing story today. The first part of which I knew, but the second I didn't. I literally heard this today. So St. Mary's in Councilwoman Friedman's district does food events for those who obviously come to their church and they do food drives and great things like that. And evidently, some of our BPD officers that were on foot patrol that day evidently not only stopped by to St. Mary's, but were talking to the people that were there and eating and joined them for a little bit, but actually spoke with the St. Mary's staff and actually worked with them to actually distribute food to people that were there. And that was just to hear that was awesome. I mean, I've heard over and over again just the amount of positive energy that I'm hearing from residents, again, whether it's First District or anywhere in the city. And, you know, I think, again, I think it's important to remember that the allocation of the officers who are actually walking the foot patrols, they're volunteering for that. So they actually really want to do it, right? Not that other officers do not, but there's just an even greater passion there. And I thought that was a great story, and I wanted to share that. Same thing about Ely Park. It's the best that I've seen in a long time, and I'm hearing from a lot of residents who golf, of which I do not, but I'm hearing a lot of positive things, and so I just want to thank everyone that's running through that. In the First District, more specifically, just like parks, whether it's families or friends or family playing basketball over in the First Ward Park, or tennis over in Rec Park, or even some of our smaller parks like Sunflower Park. It's just, it just looks amazing. So whether it was self-start parks like Sunflower Park was back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, with the residents over in the First District, and I think Walnut Street Park is actually one of those parks as well. I might be wrong about that, but the community-based park, rather, I should say. Walnut, I drove by there actually just the other day. It looks great. And I want to thank the Parks Department as well as all of our residents. It's just great to see everybody out and all that type of stuff. We had a neighborhood watch meeting down in the ward. We had over almost 50 people attend. It was absolutely amazing. It's just it's growing again as we're getting out of the hopefully continuing post-COVID pandemic, and people are coming back out again. It was just a great discussion, and it's just great to see that. I'm actually going to follow up on something Councilwoman Riley said. I know a lot of people like myself or families, right? We usually do like a spring or a summer cleaning, you know, in the house or something like that. You know, St. Pat's on the west side, they've got a great clothing drop off, and there are other awesome clothing drop offs throughout the city. If you do have something, please drop it off, particularly as it relates to shoes, whether it be sneakers, shoes, boots or coats, or, you know, whatever it might be, especially with the weather. So, you know, if you're doing any summer cleaning, just keep that in the back of your mind. I know I'm probably going to be doing that next week, actually. The roads are just looking amazing, whether it's finishing up of Glenwood, Floral Ave, and all the updates that are going on there across the Councilwoman Resinetti and her district that she represents, and the First District is great to see all the way to the JC line. So I definitely want to thank DPW, all the third party people who are putting in the sidewalks, whether it's Tordo, Mayor Cram and the mayor's office for prioritizing all that stuff. It's just great to see all those roads. I know we get a lot of phone calls about this. You know, I don't think we thank them enough. We really have an awesome, for the core group that they are, we really have an amazing code inspector department. They do a lot of work. They really, really do. Whether it's citations, whether it's following up, whether it's the court system. I want to thank each and every one of them for all the work that they do. And lastly, to any of my friends or colleagues that separate, I hope you had a happy Rosh Hashanah, a happy New Year. And, you know, I think it is important to remember for those who do celebrate, Yom Kippur is a very, very solemn and holy holiday for those who celebrate. So, and in the spirit of that tradition, I wish you, Councilwoman Friedman, and all those who celebrating Yom Kippur an easy fast. And I hope you have a holy holiday. So that being said, that's the remainder of my remarks. Thank you for everyone for all the great discussion today. This time I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilwoman Riley, seconded by Councilwoman Friedman. We are adjourned.